guys, it's Vicky, and today I am here to talk about the books that I read in October. October was an interesting reading month for me. I feel like I read 8 things, but I didn't feel productive throughout the month, and I think I learned a little something about myself in October in terms of my reading and like the ways in which I like to read, because in October I found myself at one point during the month I was reading like 5 things at once. And that just doesn't work well for me, I've discovered. I just don't like that. So in November, I'm really going to try to just stick to, you know, one physical book, one audiobook. Because I mean, even at one point in the end of October, I had 2 audiobooks going. Like, it just felt very chaotic and I didn't like it. So I'm gonna try to just calm it down in November. But yeah, I read 8 things and I had 1 DNF. So let's go ahead and get into it. So let's go ahead and get the DNF out of the way. I read about 100 pages of The Returned by Jason Mott and decided to DNF it because I just wasn't connecting to the story at all. It has a very interesting premise, but for some reason it wasn't grabbing me. Once I actually sat down and started to read the book, it just wasn't grabbing my attention. I wasn't really connecting with any characters. It kind of just had this overall, just like, I don't know, just kind of negative vibe. I don't know how to explain it. It just wasn't jiving. So I DNF'd it. This is going to be getting donated. So during the month of October, I read 3 Fear Street books and I did a vlog about it. So I'm not going to go into detail in this wrap up because I go into pretty deep detail in my vlog, but I read Haunted, The Secret Bedroom, and Halloween Party, and I had a lot of fun reading these. It was a good time. I think I gave Haunted 2.5 stars. The Secret Bedroom was my favorite of the 3. I gave it 4, and Halloween Party was a 3-star. Yeah, I wanted to kind of do some nostalgic reads and read books, like scary books from my childhood or my youth, and so I did some Fear Street books and it was really fun. So if you want to check out that vlog to get my deep thoughts on these, that's where that is, but I'm not going to repeat myself here. So the first book that I completed in October was The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig, and this was an anticipated read. So when it came through from the library, I'd been waiting for it for a while. I had to read it. And it's basically about this family, and it's a married couple and they have a teenage son named Oliver. I cannot remember what the husband and wife's names were. Sorry about that. But anyways, they move back to the husband's hometown after his father passes away. And it's one of those situations where he never wanted to go back to his hometown because growing up his father was abusive and he did not have a good relationship with him. But when he passed away, he got the house and decided that maybe a quiet life in his hometown might be better for his son, Oliver, because they were living in, I believe, Philadelphia beforehand, and so they wanted kind of a more quiet life, so they moved back. And Oliver, who is he is super empathic, and so sometimes he struggles like with everyday things because he's just very sensitive to certain issues, and he's sensitive to violence and to what other people are feeling. And he befriends this kid named Jake, who his parents kind of right off the bat start to worry about him and what this kid is, the influence he's having on Oliver. So that's all I'm going to say about the plot because it gets kind of crazy. I will say, going into this book, I was expecting something completely different than what I got. And so at first I was kind of like, what is this? Like, it just wasn't what I was expecting. However, it did end up being a really good story, and I really enjoyed the themes that it explored because like I said, one of our main characters had a really bad relationship with his father. So that is a huge theme in this book, is the father-son relationship, because you're seeing this man who had a horrible relationship with his dad and is now a father to a son, and is always conscious of how he treats his son, talks to his son, And so that was really interesting, the whole father-son relationship, and also kind of just the cycle of abuse that often happens within families and within individuals. That was also a topic that was deeply explored, and I really enjoyed those themes. I also really liked the writing. I think Chuck Wendig's writing just jives with me. I enjoyed it. I have a passage that I took a picture of because I don't have the physical book. It was a library copy. I've already returned it. But I wanted to share it with you because I thought it was good. It was good. So here we go. It says, "The truth of a house was this. It became a home when someone lived there, more so when many had lived there, their lives adding a kind of texture, sometimes invisible, in layer after layer. It was present in the way a house smelled, like the food of family dinners, the stink of cigarettes on the wall, the ripe pickled rank of body odor in a teen boy's room. It was there in little dings and scratches, in the drywall dent of a fist someone threw, in the loving and love dents found in a child's playroom, in claw marks from pets scrabbling around hardwood floors. A house was just a place. A home had soul. It lived many lives, had many ghosts. Maybe they were happy ghosts. Maybe they were sad. Maybe it was a home filled with laughter, or one wet with blood and tears. This house was not a home." So overall, I really enjoyed the Book of Accidents, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. But like I said, if you're going to go into that book expecting maybe like a haunted house story or like a ghost story, it is not that at all. But it's still good. That's all I'm going to tell you. If it piques your interest at all, definitely check it out. It was a good read. So the next book that I read in October was another one that I was kind of anticipating, and my library had it, so I decided to go for it. And it is a anthology called Battle of the Bands, and it was edited by Lauren Gabaldi. She also contributed a story. And it's basically 16 short stories that are all interconnected about this high school battle of the bands. And I wanted to read this because when I was a kid, well, when I was a teenager in high school, my kind of friend group, a lot of them were in like little local bands and would go play at different venues and obviously take part in Battle of the Bands at our high school. And I loved that whole scene. It was a great time. I have a lot of good memories. So I thought this book would kind of feel nostalgic, and it did. It definitely did. And I've never read a short story collection before where all of the stories were interconnected, and I thought that was so cool. I really liked that, and I kind of now want to try to find more collections like that because it just, I don't know, it just made for a totally different reading experience. My favorite story in the collection, I don't remember who it was by. I didn't write down who wrote it. There were 2. The one was called You Found Me, and it basically just dealt with a love triangle, which I know is like meh, kind of overdone and stuff, but it was different and I liked it. And it was also just kind of a lot of the stories in this collection, it dealt a lot with moving on, because a lot of the people that are in these bands are, you know, about to graduate and are kind of contemplating what their next step is and knowing that they're not going to be together anymore potentially and stuff. So that's a huge theme of like the entire collection, but it was a big theme in that story too that I particularly liked. And then there was another one called A Small Light that was about a brother and sister and how they really bonded over music, and that just kind of like tugged on my heart a little bit because that's kind of how my older brother and I are. We aren't like super tight knit, but one thing that we do really bond over and talk about almost every time that we see each other is music. Like, what are we listening to, blah blah blah. He was always making me like burned CDs of stuff that he like wanted me to listen to and stuff like that, and he had a huge influence on my musical taste growing up, so I really identified with that story and really liked it. So yeah, overall I rated every single story, because that's what I do with short story collections. I rated every single story and then did an average, and it averaged out to like a 3.4. So I think it was enjoyable. If it sounds like something you would like, I would say check it out because it's fun. The only thing that I thought was kind of interesting was there were a lot of girls in bands in this collection, which in my experience, there was like no girls in like the bands at school, except I think there was like 2 bands, I think, that had a girl singer. And otherwise it was a total sausage fest. So I kind of thought that was fun and kind of different, refreshing to have girls in bands, and some of them were even all girl bands, which I thought was great. So that was different from my experience, but I think different for the better. It was great. So yeah, if this interests you at all, I say check it out because it's a fun read. It'll get you all nostalgic for high school if that's what you want to do. And yeah, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read a graphic novel, American Vampire Volume 4 by Scott Snyder, Raphael Albuquerque, and Jordi Burnett. This is, like I said, the 4th volume in this series, so I'm not going to say a whole lot about it, except overall the overarching kind of story in this series is that there is this new breed of vampire that came out of America, and each volume kind of takes part in a different era of America. So this one was the 1950s, and that's why our the cover art here is of like a greaser. Yeah, so this one I ended up giving it 3 stars because it had a lot of different storylines going on, and it kind of felt like a little bit too much. I wanted more from the 1950s, but there was all over the place. But I did enjoy it. The artwork is great. And yeah, I'm going to definitely be picking up volume 5. So yeah, it was good. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't horrible. So it was a 3-star. Okay, then the next book I completed in October, I'm not going to actually review here because it was a 5-star prediction, but I did read Blackwater by I almost said Malcolm. What? Michael McDowell. Wow. And yeah, this is a 5-star prediction, so I'm not going to say much. I listened to it on audio. The audiobook was great. So I'm going to save my thoughts for my wrap up of that, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I did read it, and I'm thinking probably in December I will have completed all of my 5-star predictions and will give you my thoughts on this one. And the last book that I read in October was another one that I have been waiting for from the library for so long. So when it popped up as an audiobook, I had to jump on it and listen to it, and that is Empire of Pain. I have to read the subtitle, The Secret History of the Sackler Dynasty by Patrick Radden Keefe. This is a nonfiction book that I first heard about on the Stacks podcast and immediately put it on my TBR because it just sounded like absolutely fascinating. And it basically is a book that started out, Patrick Radden Keefe initially wrote it as an article for the New Yorker, I believe, and then it kind of expanded into a book. And so it basically goes into this family, the Sackler family. They are from New York City, and it is about they're kind of known throughout certain circles as being very philanthropic. Their names were on, they had a gallery in the Met. They have, medical buildings have their name on it. They even had, I believe, a section in the Louvre. So like schools, universities, medical facilities and stuff, they've given money to a lot of different places, and so their name is kind of out there. But there was always this sort of mystery around where their wealth came from and why they were so rich. And basically the reason that they are so rich was because they also owned a company called Purdue Pharma, which was the company that marketed and sold OxyContin. And I have such a hard time saying that because my Midwest accent does not want me to pronounce that T that's in there. OxyContin just sounds weird to me, so I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm saying Oxycontin. That's just the way I talk. Anyway, so yeah, they basically marketed and sold OxyContin, and which we now know, it was initially sold in the 90s, which we now know here in the 2020s, which sounds weird to say, that it was basically the selling of those types of prescription medications, but specifically that one is what a lot of people say is the reason why we have the opioid crisis that we have in America now. And mainly with OxyContin, it was because it was marketed by Purdue Pharma as being non-addictive, which we now know is a load of crap. And a lot of people who took that drug for various pain reasons became addicted, and it snowballed into this big thing. And so basically this family has been profiting off of this crisis for years, and basically that's what the book is about. And the whole first half of the book, Patrick Radden Keefe gives you the history of the Sacklers, because it starts with 3 brothers in the Great Depression era who basically are just trying to make it in America, you know what I mean? I believe their parents were immigrants, and so they, had a lot of just ambitions to succeed in the country. So he basically takes you through in the first half of the book these 3 brothers and then their you know, lineage, their kids and then their kids' kids. And this book was absolutely fascinating. I loved the whole first half learning about this family and kind of seeing how they built up. And then the second half, you see just how money hungry they became, to the point that they, I don't think to this day, have ever admitted any sort of wrongdoing in terms of the selling and marketing of OxyContin. But they made so much money off of that drug that we now know is a horrible thing that has done awful things to so many people in this country. And so by the end of the book, you're kind of not liking the Sacklers very much, because some of the stuff they have done isn't great. And I just was completely sucked into this story. The way that Patrick Radden Keefe wrote it, it was just so engaging, and he did so much research. He interviewed hundreds of people for this book. He got a hold of a lot of documents from various court cases, because they've been taken to court quite a few times for this whole thing. And so he had access to a lot of court documents and eventually a lot of emails and stuff. And yeah, like I said, he talked to a lot of people that have either worked for the Sacklers or kind of know them personally. He couldn't really, none of the actual Sackler family would talk to him, but yeah, it's a fantastic book. And definitely if you are interested at all and have read any other books dealing with the I cannot say opioid either, opioid crisis, you should definitely check this one out, because it is so well researched, so well written. I absolutely loved it. And now I want to read his other book. He has another book out. I think it's called Say Nothing, or is it Say Anything? It's not Say Anything. I think it's Say Nothing. I think that one is about a woman that was murdered in Ireland or something. Anyways, I definitely got to get my hands on that one now, because I adored his writing. It was so good. And yeah, this is one I will definitely recommend to any of you nonfiction readers out there. It is a really, really good read. It will suck you in. I knew nothing about the Sacklers, absolutely nothing. And so this was very eye-opening to me and just very interesting. So yeah, I gave it 5 stars. It was fantastic, and I highly suggest that you read it. Okay, so those are all the books that I read in October. It was a pretty good reading month, though. Like I said, it just felt non-productive. I don't know why. So hopefully November will be a better month in that regard. And yeah, I hope you guys had a happy Halloween if you celebrate it. And I got so many compliments on my shelf decorations from you guys in comments and stuff. So thank you. I appreciate it. They are going to come down today because Halloween is over. So we're going to pack up the Halloween stuff today and until next year. But I definitely will consider decorating my shelves going forward for Halloween, because I've never did it before and it was a fun little experiment, and yeah, I ended up really liking it too. So yeah, so I hope you guys had a great holiday if you celebrate it, and I hope November treats you well, and I will talk with you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.